Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the American Masterminds podcast.
Each episode, we invite extraordinary guests who are masters of their craft. They're innovators, entrepreneurs, and of course, motorcycle enthusiasts who have made their mark in the world.
They share their stories, insights, and hard-earned wisdom, giving you a front row seat to the strategies and experiences that shape their successes.
So sit back, grab a drink, and get ready for an exhilarating ride as we dive deep into the minds of these exceptional individuals.
Along the way, we'll uncover powerful strategies, gain fresh perspectives, and explore the limitless possibilities of what it takes to be an American mastermind. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the American Masterminds podcast. We are joined tonight with a very, very special guest. But first, let me introduce my co-host, Mr. Rob Adams.
Hey, hey.
And we've got Alec Langdon up on the soundboard. And ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have author and Christmas Box International Executive Director, Celeste Edmunds.
Hey,
welcome,
friends.
Celeste.
Thanks for having me.
So, Celeste, first and foremost, we got to get something out of the way, okay? Because when I was explaining this to Alec, and obviously Rob knows a little bit about you, the Christmas Box, okay? While it's one of the best organizations and causes that I've come across, the name itself really doesn't paint a good picture of what it does. So let's start with that. Could you tell us what the
Solid
Christmas Box
question.
is?
Yeah, so our founder, Richard Paul Evans, wrote a little green book called The Christmas Box 30 years ago this year, actually.
Wow.
So the name comes from that. And the book itself is based on the loss of a child, and that the only guarantee of childhood, right, is that it will eventually end. So when he decided to become a full-time author and made quite a bit of money, he and his wife decided they wanted to give back, but they weren't quite sure the best way, just that it needed to obviously involve children. So I was his personal assistant at the time, 30 years ago. He just wrote that little green book, and he knew that I was raised in child welfare, and so we held a child welfare conference at the University of Utah Graduate School of Social Work, and we just asked simply, what is the single best thing we can do for Utah's children? Well, ironically or not ironically, Utah was one of 9 states at the time that was being sued by the National Center for Youth Law for the mistreatment of children.
What?
So at that conference, what we learned and what happened to me and my siblings, my brother and sister, is that kids were being, for lack of a better phrase, hot potatoed, just passed around because there was no place to do proper due diligence. There was not that place where they could go, be safe, get all the essential items that they need, until we could find the best place for them. I mean, do they go into foster care? Is there another family member that can take them? Or under a safety plan with the state, can they return home? Instead, it was just, as a police officer told us, whoever answers the phone first is where I'm going to take this 2-year-old. And it's just not the best solution for children. I mean, we need more time. And we also live in a state where we have large families. So if you have 3, 4, 5 kids and you remove 3, 4, 5 kids, it's going to be very difficult to find a quick placement for them. So the Christmas Box House was named after the book, The Christmas Box, and it is a temporary emergency shelter. That is exactly what it is, year-round, 365 days a year. Pandemic, no pandemic, good economy, bad economy, doesn't really matter. We always have children. We have 3 of those emergency shelters in Utah. We have one in Moab, Salt Lake, and Ogden. And the thing is not all kids need to stay at a Christmas Box House, but all kids need all the same essential items, right? And so in addition to the Christmas Box Houses, we have what we call resource rooms. We have 22 of those located across the state of Utah.
Oh, wow.
And those are rooms located in DCFS offices that allow caseworkers to access those resources for the same children that would come into a Christmas Box House. So those are our 2 biggest programs, are the emergency shelters and then the resource rooms.
On the 3 shelters that you have out there, what is the capacity, full capacity? How many children can you be serving at a time?
So our Ogden and Salt Lake shelters are about 15,000 square feet, and they can hold upwards of 33 children at a given time. Our Moab shelters are small rural model, so it's 6 children. And the best thing, in my opinion, since I lost my siblings myself, is that we keep 1,000 siblings together every year on average.
Wow.
That's 1,000 brothers and sisters that otherwise would have to be separated and go into different places. And it becomes oddly comfortable to when you are not used to having your parents. Sometimes that's not the worst part. The worst part is truly losing your siblings, because when you're removed, you have the loss of parents, and then all of your belongings are gone, and then you have the extended family that no longer exists, all the uncles, aunts, relatives, right, that you're used to. So the sibling loss is really the last thing you have that attaches you to the dynamic of who you are.
Family.
In your world,
Yeah.
yeah. And so keeping 1,000 together years, my favorite statistic.
That's a great statistic. I love that. Can we step back just a little bit further
Yeah,
and talk about where you came from and that your upbringing? And I think this really kind of sets into place why you are so passionate about this mission.
Definitely very passionate about this mission. So I was in and out of foster care or with another family member or in a drug rehabilitation center with my one or both of my parents until I was officially removed at the age of 7. The age of 9. Between 7, 8, and 9 was probably the most trauma I experienced with sexual, physical, and emotional abuse. It was those 3 years that were probably the most extreme for me. And then age 9, I was adopted into a very, very abusive family and ran away by the time I was 15. I lived on the street for about a year, and then I'm summing it all up, and then I landed in with a family. It's all in the book. That later she adopted me as an adult at age 26. The joke was I came for Thanksgiving dinner, never left, because it was like 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. And so our 9-year Thanksgiving, I just said, hey, can I make a toast to the family? This is the longest I've ever been with a family. And I just want to say thank you. And my mom literally jumps out of her seat, and she's like, I have something I have to tell everybody. And she shares this very emotional story that not even her biological children about losing a child of her own when she was 6 months pregnant and had to have an abortion. And at that time, moms were kind of just sent home, like,
Figure it out.
just deal with it, go home, take care of your kids. There was no real emotional trauma that was dealt with. So bless her heart, she carried that secret all of her life. And
Wow.
she said, I was always supposed to have a little girl, and it was you.
Oh my gosh.
So I think we should legally adopt you. And I was like, I was 26, Rob. I'm not crying. You're crying.
You got me going. I love this story so much.
So I said, I was like, Mom, I'm married at the time, and I already have another last name, and we have 2 kids. They call you Grandma. I call you Mom. Like, really, it's cool. And she said, no, I think there's something that we're supposed to do here. So lo and behold, you can't just go change your birth certificate. Who would have thought?
Yeah, it's a thing.
You really have to get an attorney. You really have to go before a judge. And so we did. We filled up a courtroom of 50 people, and a really amazing experience for me happened. And that was, so in downtown Salt Lake, we have basically 2 courthouses. We have the old one that's now the county building with the nice clock, right?
Right.
And then we have the new one in front of it with the glass windows. So the glass one had just opened when I was adopted, February 1st of 2000. And I remember the direction I was facing, standing before the judge, right? So the old courthouse that I was adopted in the first time was behind me. So I had like this really metaphorical moment, very symbolic moment going on. And the judge is just smiling, like grinning. He said, I've never done an adult adoption. Like, it's usually so difficult.
Yeah.
And he's like, so I feel like you guys should say something. So I liken it kind of to the wedding vow thing.
Oh.
So I look at my mom and I'm like, what are you going to say? She's like, I don't know. What are you going to say? So she shares her experience about losing a child, and like I was her girl. And I just immediately knew. And I said, you know what? I was standing, interestingly enough, in the courthouse behind me all those years ago, and I was standing in a judge's chambers, and I had been told my whole life how lucky I would be if I was ever adopted, because older children don't get adopted. As a matter of fact, if a kiddo reaches the age of 4, chances of adoption drop 50%.
What?
So everybody's like, you're so lucky, and I remember thinking, wow, your version of lucky and mine are really different. Because this is not what luck feels like to me. And I was like, but now, moving forward, like I'm literally looking forward, and I'm choosing this family that I'm with. And it's a family that my mom says home's where they have to keep you. You don't get kicked out. You don't get shifted around. We take all the strays, animals and people, every Thanksgiving. And it did make an unusual closure for me that I didn't expect. And so the book kind of ends at that moment, by the way.
Oh, that's a beautiful story.
Inside out, yeah.
Well, we're picking the story up from there.
Okay.
Yeah. And then what happened?
And then, marriage, kids, all the things. And we launched the Christmas box, a few years later. And it just totally changed my life because Christmas Box House is more than just a charity for me. I mean, it's a legacy. It is what I will leave behind knowing that I left the world a much better place than I had it as a child. There's no question in my heart or my mind about that. And it brings, a lot of hope to children that come to the shelter because we can't do anything to change what has happened to them when they come to us. But what we can do is follow our motto, and that's every child deserves a childhood. So the moment they come to the shelter, whether they're getting every single essential item that they need, new only, toys, clothes, books, hygiene items, stuffed animals, I mean, literally anything you'd buy your child, obviously they need, because when a kiddo's removed, what they have on them is what they're going to have.
Right.
It's not like, hey, pack a bag in 30 minutes, we're going to go on a little trip. It's usually
Load up.
very traumatic.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've heard nothing but horror stories
Yeah, there
on
can
this.
be police officers involved. There can be, I have stories of hiding my dad under a couch thinking I was like, no one's going to see him. Obviously, there's
There's a space there.
there's a pocket. The
Yeah.
officer's like, I could tell when that happened, that particular situation, now in retrospect feel much sorrier for him because I can recall the look on his face like, okay, here's this 8-year-old girl, right? And she's like, my dad's not here. You can't see my dad. Thinking I'm like,
Doing your
almighty,
part.
yeah. And he's kind of trying to gently pull me away. Well, even then I was a bit feisty, so he ends up just having to pick me up while I'm just losing my mind. And thinking back, I'm like, that had to have been so hard for him to know that I was like, you can't have my dad, and I'm screaming, and they're handcuffing him and taking him away. That is very much the type of experience that happens. And so by the time they get into the shelter, they're freaked out, they're super scared, they certainly don't want to talk about what's going on in their life. And so I'm like, what can we do that symbolizes a level of you're still a kid? Well, for one, if you're the oldest, like I was, and you're mom, for them to have 30-minute breaks of not parenting is a brand new concept for them.
Oh.
Hey, I don't know, why don't you go ahead and play on the playground, Rob? Why don't you take a turn getting your food first? Why don't you get ice cream with all the toppings you want, and we'll worry about your siblings? And it's a bit difficult for them at first, and then all of a sudden you kind of see this like, oh, that's what that feels like. I'm like, can I ride a bike and go around the bike track? We're like, yeah, you can do that a lot, because this is what you do when you're a kid.
Wow.
Like you get to be off. And so it's just kind of like those special moments that we just get to remind them that they get to have hope and community and, all the love vibes that they're supposed to have as a kiddo that just otherwise maybe they've never even experienced before.
It's never even crossed their mind.
No, because when you're in it, I didn't realize the extent of this until this past year writing my story, and that is when you're surviving it and you're in it, any traumatic situation, you're really moving forward by nature of the fact that you just kind of have to.
Right.
So you just keep pushing through and pushing through. Well, when you go back and revisit something that you need to process and write, now you're actually living the experience because you're not pushing through it. You're putting yourself in it to recall it, and you're writing about it. So it's like, oh, that is happening. That didn't happen to that girl. That happened to me. That was my story. And the process is pretty intense. But I actually recommend everybody write their story. You don't have to publish it. But I feel like what you learn about yourself is truly remarkable. On like, wow, look what I've accomplished through whatever, years.
Yeah.
And you kind of get to celebrate your own success. And I don't think there's a better way of doing it than actually writing your story. Because everybody has one.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
everybody has one. Everybody has their stuff. And it's, remarkably difficult. Probably it is the single hardest thing I've ever done, and I've delivered 3 children. For the record.
For the record.
But yeah, the book thing's quite difficult. But
That's interesting. I can imagine the healing that you would have in like just getting it out like this.
Yeah.
This isn't just something I remember. This is, here it is. Here it is. It would be almost that vulnerability. Ugh,
I would
makes my
say
guts
it's like, okay, well, here's my journal. I hope it's okay.
Yeah.
I
Read my very personal life, like just
A
what
little
happened.
awkward, but it's kind of the best way to make an impact. And I really want people to know what it's like to grow up in a system and not grow up in a home that's truly like your home. Every time, it's called Garbage Bag Girl is the name of the book, because every time I was moved every 6 months, because for me, going through child welfare, there was this philosophy at the time that keep transitioning the kids, because they're not going to stay with the family anyway. So why should they get attached?
Right.
Keep moving them. Well, now we know that's extremely
Absolutely
unhealthy.
bull crap.
Yeah, whether you stay at a family for a minute or forever, you need to have those human attachments.
Yeah.
But at that time, so it was every 6 months. So I lived in about 31, 32 cities by the time I was 16.
What?
And it was, I have a great appreciation for world travel.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. But 2 schools a year, and it was easy to kind of learn to start to like say, hi, I'm Celeste, and make friends. But, looking back, I realized I didn't ever make the same kind of connections that some people make in terms of, oh, I come from this town. And
Yeah. We've been friends since the 3rd grade.
yeah. Our families know each other, and I can call you anytime. Like, I don't know that concept. And most of the kids that stay with us will never know that concept either. So it's kind of a heavy responsibility. But every time I moved placements, I was like, okay, in 30 to 45 seconds, I'm going to quickly pack up everything I have in this garbage sack, and then I'm going to go to the next home, and I'm going to start asking to borrow items. Do you have hygiene products? Do you have a pair of shorts? Because I get my very last visit with my dad this coming Saturday, and I want to be really cute. This is when I was 8. And I knew that was the last visit. It's like I have to borrow everything. So when people are like, why do you only collect new stuff? Like, here's a perfect example. When we opened 27 years ago, I asked 8-year-old Kimberly. She had long black hair. And obviously, she was 8, and 8 was an impactful year for me. So it was a very emotional moment. And I was like, hey, Kimberly, what do you want for Christmas? If I can make it happen,
It's gonna happen.
It's on.
Yeah.
And she sits there. It felt like a long time. It was probably like 2 minutes. And she said, I'll just have a shirt with a tag on it.
That's all she wanted was
I was
something
like, I
new
don't know,
that
how
was
about 10
hers.
shirts with tags on it?
You have a preference in colors.
Yeah, I was like, long sleeve, short sleeve. But I was like, you can ask for anything, Kimberly. And her point was like, I don't really need what you probably think I'm going to ask for.
Yeah.
I just need comfort and hope and new, and not have to ask for a second to borrow something all the time. And so in 27 years, I'm proud to say, no child's left the Christmas box house with a freaking garbage sack. They've all picked a duffel bag or a backpack or whatever is meaningful to them. And then everything they get that's brand new goes in it. And then everything that they need when they leave that's new for the next placement, it's all their stuff. And we have kids now, after being around so long, that are alumni, that are adults. And I had this really cool opportunity last summer to interview 3 of them. They all came back to the Salt Lake house for the first time since they were a kid.
Wow.
Oh,
So I have
wow.
this cool footage of like, I would tell the camera crew, just stay back. Just like, wait a minute, let them catch their breath, and let's just see where they go. Every single one of them followed the same little path, ironically. They weren't even there at the same time. They touched the stuffed animals. They walked around the tree that they see for the first, like they went through their first experience of moving through the house, and they speak about the same experiences of what it meant to them, and that they still have those first new items they ever got in their life to this day. One's like, Ricky the raccoon. I'm like, you're Ricky the raccoon? Cool, I love Ricky the raccoon. Like it's the smallest acts of kindness, the smallest one-offs that make the biggest impact to the kids. And so it's pretty awesome.
That is so awesome. That is
Clearly,
pretty
I'm really
awesome.
passionate.
I love that. I love the connection and the newness of the item, and this is mine, and it's meaningful, and it gives me almost an identity. Like, I am worthy of having Ricky the raccoon. Like, it was a gift for me.
That's right.
And having that means I matter, and I'm a real person. And
Yep.
it's like that first connection of that's meaningful. That's powerful.
They all speak of that. I mean, it was not ironic or coincidental. We knew that's what mattered. And then we told them, you know where all this stuff comes from, right? Like the community, people you've never even met in your whole life. And from personal experience, I know that to be heart-wrenching and beautiful and all those things, because at the time you're going through that, you're thinking no one's on your side, right?
You're alone.
Like, huh. I mean, the moment somebody was like, "Hey, Celeste," I'm like, already packing. I mean, I just kind of knew. I mean, it's when I was adopted at 26, is because the first thing my mom said to me, my mom, who I call mom, who adopted me as an adult, I was 16, and she comes walking in the kitchen, and she says, I'm doing dishes, because I learned that if I clean, people would ask me to leave less, and I'm really good at it. So she's like, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" And I'm thinking, oh, here we go. It's, you know what, it's fine, don't feel bad, everything's fine, every 6 months, this is what we do. And she said, "You know, you don't have to be perfect to live here, right?" And I was like, I don't even know what that means, but okay. She's like, "You don't have to clean, you don't have to do the dishes, you don't have to cook, you don't have to do something every second to stay here. Home," that's when she first said, "Home's where they have to keep you. That's just the way it is." And I was like, okay, something's coming up. Like,
Yeah.
I just couldn't get my head around it, which is why I think ultimately the adoption was so critical, because I've always had this feeling of, you know, the mic's going to drop, right? Someone's going to pull the rug out. I mean, I struggle with it today for sure, not nearly as bad, but there's kind of this constant like, all right, I'm going to get booted out at any minute. It's fine. My stuff's always ready. I don't want to be in the way. It's gathered up on, like, in a neat little spot. I can be out of here in a sec.
It's interesting. That's
So
how
it's
you
just
were
kinda-
of the mind that I'm going to prove my value.
Yes.
I'm worth having here. Let me show you.
That's right. That's exactly what it is. There's always a need to be validated.
Yeah.
Because you don't know how to find that within until you're older, and maybe you seek help and you figure that out. You don't know that value has to come within yourself. You can't keep seeking it from other people.
Yeah. Or it'll never be filled.
That's right. That's
Wow.
right. And so, yeah, it's
In learning that lesson, I think this is probably one of the most important lessons in our lives, is knowing that I am valuable regardless of what other people think of me, and I'm valuable as a person. The second I was born, you cannot add to or take away the value that I came
right.
with. There's no doctor that holds up a baby and says, "Quick, nurse, bring me a shot of value." You know,
that's totally true.
It's-
because it's like, what's the one thing that's going to uniquely differentiate everybody? No one's going to have the same DNA.
Right.
Your unique value is truly that. It's so unique, but you get beat down enough, and you get told you're worthless enough, and at some point you just don't believe it. I can guarantee you're not born thinking that.
Right.
I think you're
Right.
pretty. You watch little kids; they're pretty invincible.
Yeah.
They're like
Walking around in
I'm
a
gonna run into
t-shirt,
that wall, get
cowboy
back up,
boots.
and do it again. Yeah.
Whatever they want, they don't care. Yeah, and then we grow up, and then we start to learn these beliefs, these lies. They're
That's
really
right.
lies.
That's right.
Because it's not congruent with who we are. I don't believe that I'm worthy, but somehow I know I'm intrinsically, infinitely valuable, and so that is a lie, right?
That's right.
And I love that the gift, the thing that you're giving them, the newness, and that is starting that story. And I may be adding too much to Ricky the raccoon, but I can really see a person for the first time thinking, "Oh,
Yeah.
I am loved."
That's right.
That's powerful.
And they get to select everything that's new, right? It's not even like they're handed it. They walk in and we're like, "You can have whatever stuffed animal you want." Well, there's shelves of them. It's from Disney to
Whatever.
Star Wars to, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You want a Yoda? You want a...
Right.
Some of them are like, "No, I just want this little guy." Great.
Yeah.
So they start there, and then everything that they get and they pick out as they accumulate it that's new, it continues to belong to them, but they've actually picked it out for themselves. It's not like, here's a pair of shorts, throw them on.
Yeah.
Get what you get and don't throw a fit, like my mom says.
Yeah.
Not the same concept at the Christmas box house.
So that being said, where does a Christmas box get the ability to have all this newness available for 33 kids in 2 different locations and 6 kids in Moab? That's a lot happening all the time, plus all of the resource centers. That's a lot to manage.
Yep, it is a lot to manage. It's $800,000 a year on average of in-kind donations. We now have
man.
a donation center off the 4500 South I-15 exit in Murray, just to be able to manage that type of load. There's only 6 of us. We do utilize volunteers as well. And so our belief is also that no donation goes wasted ever, nor does it get stored for an entire year, because I believe everything belongs in the hands of a child or a family as fast as we can get it, which means we're very reliant on the community, because we don't get into the hoard concepts. Like, we know there's going to be enough. There always is. So we source to the Christmas box shelters first, the 3 resource rooms. Then we source out to the 22 resource rooms, and that's 14 counties. My goal is to be in all 29 in the next 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And then we will provide for all 1,000 caseworkers in the state, which I know I'll feel really good that we are providing for all children at that point that need that in DCFS care.
What a tremendous goal in the next,
So
how
we've
long?
doubled in the last 2.5 years. We went from 12 to 22, and I want in the next 3 years I want to be in all 29 counties. So we're in 14 counties. So we source to them next, and then we have this cool event every spring called our Partner Share, and we have over 80 partners in the community that we reach out to. We say for these 2 days, our donation center's open. We have what we need for the year. Whatever we have that you need, you come and take it. And they basically come shop. Our partners in the community, because really, I believe there's no need for competition in nonprofits. I think it's a huge mistake to get into the why would you give to me over you.
Right.
It's more if I'm not the right fit for you, Rob's charity might be the right fit for you, right? And that's why we have the groups where we get together and we're like, well, what do you need? Well, what do you need? Well, you know what I have? Oh, you know what? I got one of those. Oh, and I have one of those. And we synergize because the nonprofit world offsets everything in the other part of the world, right? Taxes and everything else that we don't ever get. Like we're the reason that exists. And if we're not supporting each other, then we're not the ones that are hurting.
Right.
It's
Right.
the families that really need it.
Yeah.
And so I believe we're all serving a very, very similar population. We're all touching the same families to some degree. I can guarantee you that.
Oh, yeah.
I accessed as a child almost every nonprofit of meaning I can even think of, from the homeless shelter, which is what it was called at the time, to the food bank. I mean, you name it. The women's shelter, we touched it somehow, some way. And so now I'm like, wow, how do I go back and give to those nonprofits that I know boosted my family up at a time when that was not even possible for us? And it's bring those nonprofits together, you know?
I'm so in love with all the things that you're saying. It's an amazing. So here I am in the community. I'm new in the community. I'm in Utah, and I'm thinking to myself, boy, I really want to get involved in an organization that's doing real good in our community. How do I do that? How do I get involved if in the Christmas boxes? Just Johnny on the street. I want to get my family involved. What can I do to support?
So when you go onto our website, thechristmasbox.org, we have every way to give, because I believe everybody wants to give. They just don't always know like where their fit is. And for me, it's important to not fit anybody into a box of here's just how you help us. It's here are 4 ways you can help. Obviously monetarily, right? We can take $1 and create $7 of services based on the resource relationships that we have, which is awesome. You can volunteer. You can do a service project. You know, we have weeding and all sorts of fun yard projects always going on. You can do one of our donation drives and collect in-kind items off of our wish list that we update every quarter. Or if you really can't and don't have it in you to do any of those things, you can go onto social media and share our message. And it's just as valuable at this day and age. I'll take any of those 4 things if one of those can work for you, because everybody has a way to give and everybody has a certain amount of time to give. And I think, you know, you just kind of have to be creative. And for us, it's be very flexible. If somebody calls and says, how can I help? I ask them, how do you want to help first? Is there something that like really matters to you that, you know, you want to see happen with your family or your church group or your neighbors or whatever you're doing, your partner? And if you have a fit, then I'm going to fill that need, because I want it to also be meaningful. I want people to come and say, wow, I had a really cool experience because Celeste or her team took a lot of care to make sure that was very valuable to me.
It's interesting in a nonprofit how we serve our target, these children.
Yep.
And then we also have to serve the people who would like to serve. And we have as a nonprofit, you're facing in a lot of different directions that you wouldn't anticipate in like a normal business where I have a one end user or a client.
That's right.
There's a lot of consideration of people's feelings all the way across the board. When you're doing that, how do you stay balanced in the mission? Like there's a lot of people that want to go in these different directions. They're even excited and they have the resources and the money to do that. How do you stay on goal?
Me personally?
Well, as a director, I would imagine that.
Because you're also not off at 5 o'clock. Don't forget to have that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
You're never off.
Which is not for everyone, which is important to recognize. when people are like, I think I want to start a nonprofit. I'm like, we should probably talk about that.
Yeah. Best worst idea
I
you'll
want
ever
to go
have.
into leadership. We should probably talk about that.
Yeah.
Just, I want to be a foster parent. Same thing. We should talk about that. There's the what you don't know.
Yeah.
Because once you're in it, like for me, I'm in it. Like I said, it's my legacy. This is what I'll do until I'm not doing it anymore.
It's what
But
you're made to do.
It's not till I'm like, well, I wonder what my next thing is. This is it for me.
This is your thing.
So I think, your personal connection, kind of like you with your charity, that story, that reminder has to connect you all the time to your why.
Because this is hard.
It's very hard. It's harder than people even can imagine it is, because you're constantly taxed. Your mind, your time, your system, you just constantly have something going on, and you have to find first your why. Why do you do it at all? I mean, why does it even matter to you?
Sure.
What if somebody else came in and did it? And I'm like, well, for me, I can guarantee you, next to Richard Paul Evans, that's maybe put in more money than me, no one's going to care about it nearly as much as me. I would fight that battle all day long. I'm really confident of that. And when I see, it's also hard because I see, we don't interact, my team doesn't interact with the kids every day, but we see them every day. They come to our side, of the building. We have the shelter side, and then we have the administrative side. And I'm usually like pretty on point, pretty focused. And then there's like a 7, 8, or 9-year-old that's in that very prime age, and I know every time. I'm like, hey, buddy, you about 8 years old? Yep. I mean, I'm 100% on that. And I mean, it is like, I just turned 50, right? And it's like, I go right back to their age in a split second. So for me, the hardest part is I'm there again, and I instantly kind of want to feel bad. And then I have this immediate, oh my gosh, you know what? They just need to be reminded that this is a blip in their life. Like if I get a chance to talk to them, I'm like, oh man, buddy, this is so hard right now, right? Like it pretty much sucks. Let's just have that conversation. But I promise you, it will get better. And the people that are here love you. You're
in the right place.
They want you to be okay. I was there. I'm okay, as far as he knows. There's just kind of this constant trick of the mind where you're like, oh, I'm in this place, but all right, I need to realign. And the whole conversation that people always have around, like, do you have enough balance? I'm like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like it's a 50-50, there's a percentage. Okay, give a little bit give 50% to home and give it. To me, balance comes on a day-to-day basis. It's not a long-term strategy in any way. Or you're just kind of, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. It's every day. For me, I have a very specific drill in the morning, the way I'm very routine, because it helps me get in my head. I mean, there's people are like, I can't believe you get up at 5 a.m. And I'm like, well, I also raised 3 children. And I knew they were up at 7. And I'm like, I have 2 hours of my whole day, and I'm taking it.
Let's talk about that, can we, for a second?
Yeah.
I'm a huge
What does
win
the
the
2
morning,
hours look
win the
like,
day. Yeah,
Celeste?
what are you doing for those 2 hours? Because I believe that success is built on those 2 hours, in my opinion.
Totally is.
The whole day is built around those 2 hours. So you get up at 5 o'clock, what
I'm
happens?
very grounded. Before I even or in order to be very grounded, I should say, because we all have our days. I have a gratitude moment the moment I open my eyes. And some days it's as simple as, I didn't wake up with a headache today. Yep.
Win.
I'm not even exaggerating. Like, it's like, it doesn't really, the point of what you're grateful for is so irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's that you put yourself into the mindset of gratitude immediately. I already start stretching before I get out of bed. It's not what I do next. It's just like, there's got to be a flow. So by the time I'm standing, it's, I'm in stretch or yoga or whatever mode you want to call it. Make my bed. It's my gift to myself every single day. Slam down 8 ounces of water because I'm probably dehydrated. Go get my first cup of coffee. That's a reward. And then I meditate.
And what does meditation look like?
I have these little readings that I do, but really it's about me getting into, nature is very important to me. I love to kayak. Obviously I can't jump in the water and kayak every day. I don't live that close to the water. But I can sit outside and look at the mountains for sure. Or if I'm traveling, there's somewhere I can look outside. And my ability to connect that way with nature, read the reading that I'm going to read that day, and just kind of fall into this place of universe, I'm super, super grateful for what I have today. It's hard. I also have some health issues, so sometimes I just don't wake up feeling well. So I have to remind myself that there's a lot that I am grateful for. And some days it's my kids. Like I said, some days it's I don't have a headache. Whatever it is, my arthritis isn't as bad today. Whatever it is. The point is I have to put myself in that place of, wow, this is a gift. And whatever it takes me to get into that place that it's a gift before I launch into everybody else gets my time has to happen. If I don't have that, the whole trajectory of my day is so uniquely different.
Yeah.
Because the moment that hits, you're on. So I mean, I do have parameters. I work 7 to 7. Some might find that excessive, but I start checking emails at 7 a.m. and I stop checking emails at 7 p.m. It's just I just do that. I don't turn on the news until I'm up for 2 hours in the morning. Like there's just very specific things that I've designed to not scatter out my brain because I don't already know where my fight or flight modes are going to come. The theory is, I believe that every time you check an email, you have 30 to 45 seconds of the fight or flight mode. Well, how many emails do you get in a day? I don't
Hundreds.
know.
Yeah.
That's right. So every time you open that, every time you click that, every time you check your social media, every time you do anything
There's
like
a crisis.
your brain takes 30 to 45 seconds to calm it back down. So I think you have to give it boundaries to say, and there's another thing. I believe every hour is extremely critical. So I try to work for 52 minutes and then I pause for 17.
What do you do for your 17 minutes?
I breathe.
You just breathe.
I
Some
just
Wim
breathe.
Hof style breathing.
Just the deepest, and then you got to blow it out. You got to get it out of there.
And so for 17 minutes,
I just calm down and breathe.
you turn all your
And
devices
sometimes
off.
I just walk, I'm just walking around my office. I have a great view of the nature again outside. So sometimes I walk out in it if it's, the weather's permitting. Go to the gym 4 days a week. That has to happen. So I'm in the office at 8. I leave at 4. Like I'm leaving at 4. I'm still going to check my email, but I'm leaving. I'm going straight to that gym and I'm going to blow something out and then I'll be back on. But it's like we schedule all the meetings, all the stuff, right? Like we schedule everything in our calendars except what do we schedule last?
Ourselves.
Anything we need.
Yeah.
Because it's so irrelevant. It's so like, oh, you know what? I'll do that tomorrow. I'll get an extra workout today. It's like, no, you won't. Because everyone will take whatever they need from you. I can promise you that.
And leave you.
You won't. You have to take what you need from you, and you have to feel that beautiful selfishness that people tell you you're not supposed to be selfish for. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are, because the better I am, the better you get of me.
Yeah,
like
sure.
It's just, you know what I mean, how that works. And so healthy relationships, those matter.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, I love that you're taking time to fill your cup before you go and spend time
And you know what, I
filling
remember the
everyone
days when I didn't do it, so I won't go back to it.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I would
not like I
imagine-
was just born that way. I mean, I really had to learn in corporate world. When I was in corporate world for 14 years, they will take from you. So I was prepared to come back into nonprofit because I had a pause of when I started and helped launch Christmas Box for 9 years. I left and went into corporate world for 14, recognizing that I needed leadership and marketing. I needed some skill sets that I wasn't going to get from nonprofit. But I knew I'd be back one day. And 14 years later, which was 3 years ago, I came back as executive director, and I feel much more prepared than I would have if I'd have kind of grandfathered into the role over time. I feel like I learned a lot of hard lessons in the corporate environment because it's very take mind oriented.
Yeah.
The opposite, right, is that in nonprofit, it's very compassionate oriented, but the pressure is uniquely different.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of an odd contrast. I think, it's a take model in corporate. Then you move to nonprofit and you've got all this love and compassion and people, but you're also the one providing it.
Right.
When you're the executive director in
Right.
your role, like you're
And
the one that has to push it.
Even with all that love and gratitude and kindness, stuff still needs to get done.
That's right.
And now I'm motivating people who are non-paid or paid very little.
That's right.
And so motivation, leadership, really,
Yeah.
it's a different
Yeah.
level of just like, we'll do it because
Yeah.
I said so, because that's what we hired you for. You can't do that anymore.
No, that model does not work. I mean, corporate world's finding that doesn't work either, right?
Right.
Like, especially through COVID, people are like, oh yeah, let's work from home.
Yeah. See ya.
I mean, how that feels.
Well, let me ask you this. The more you talk, the more I need to know. I'm running away with
No,
this.
go ahead. Go ahead.
If you could recommend a book that's been very instrumental in your life, something that you read once a year, twice a year, something that is one of your staples, what would that book be?
The Universe Has Your Back.
The Universe Has Your
My
Back.
hands down.
Oh man, I'm getting
I
that
won't
one.
even pause.
That was
And
no
when
hesitation.
And when you're done reading it, you'll go back and start reading it again. That book was the second book I read. It was only, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was more impactful than the first one, which the first one is What Happened to You. Those two books I have read during the process of writing my book. What Happened to You was recommended to me. It's an Oprah Winfrey book that's co-written with a doctor. And that doctor took his knowledge, which is now being put into what's called trauma-informed care with children and families. This doctor, this psychiatrist has been around for so long. I don't remember all the Waco craziness, but he was the one that was pulled in with his team to take care of those children when they were pulled out of that combine.
What?
And he has the most remarkable stories of personal experiences that he's put into this book. And what he has done is he's changed the narrative of the way we ask the question. That's really critical. And it's that don't ask somebody what has happened to you, or what's wrong with you, ever, right? It's a defensive question.
Sure.
What's wrong with you?
Well, nothing.
Well, what do you mean what's wrong, right? You do that. You ask them what has happened to you.
What has happened to you?
Please share your story. What has happened to you? And this book is based on that model, which again is being put into practice. They call it trauma-informed therapy. And it's changing that narrative so that the moment you understand who you are better and why you make the decisions you make effective changes in your life.
And better decisions.
Yeah, but you have to know, why do I even do that in the first place?
Right.
Right.
It's not because something's wrong with me. It's because a story's happened to me.
Yeah.
And I've been impacted by it. And then you follow it up with my very favorite book, which is The Universe Has Your Back. And that is, I don't care who your God or whatever is. For me, can you believe that there's something so much bigger than you? Do you trust that? Do you believe whatever that deity is to you? And believe that that universe truly has your back? And how do you engage with that? How do you believe it? There's meditation strategies in that book, highly effective. Nothing has changed my life more in this past year,
Those
by
are good.
far, than that book.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, those are two must reads.
You're welcome, because you're going to love it, Rob. I know you're going to love The Universe Has Your Back.
Probably.
It's great.
Yeah,
It'll be
yeah.
read by the end of the week.
It's
Yeah,
so
I
good.
will. I'm a
Audible
reader.
while you're driving, that's my thing, because
Yeah.
reading makes me tired, but yeah.
I just finished my book today, so when you said that, I'm like, oh, hey. Good
We're
stuff.
in.
Start a new one, and I usually have 2 or 3 going at the same time,
Right.
because my mind just does that.
Me too. Same. Same, but I've got one spot open. So I'm excited. The Universe Has Your Back and What Happened to You. I'm going to check them out. When you are looking back now, you can see the progress that you've made, and it's unbelievable to think that it's been happening now for, the book is 30 years old, and this idea with the 3 shelters, these children being helped and being kept together, looking back, you can see some progress along the way. Where do you see Christmas Box being in the next 5 years? Is 5 years too? Maybe 3 years is the best question.
3 years I see us helping every caseworker in the state through our resource rooms, by far. And then again, because growing up, I just thought that everybody dismissed me and I didn't have a voice. And it was easy to blame a system that just, because it failed me on every aspect.
Sure.
Being removed from my parents, even as dysfunctional as they were, didn't give me a better life.
Okay.
It was not.
It put you into a different set of
It
problems.
put me into a tremendous amount of danger. And so it'd be easy for me to feel super bitter about that. And instead, I embrace the fact that I truly believe it isn't at all any of the people that were in it. They're put into a system that's extremely complicated. Child welfare is very complicated. A lot of red tape, a lot of things you can't do. And so my thought has been that I always help the partners that obviously struggled doing a good job for me. The more I can help them, the better they can help children. Because I get asked, why aren't you a foster parent? And even though it's awesome, and I think those that are really great foster parents, bless their heart, that's awesome. We'll never have enough of those, for one. that's not the answer. It has to be that I'm not going to help one or two kiddos that come into my home at a time. I'm going to help 14,000 children a year, which is what we do. I'm going to help them. I'm going to make the biggest impact as much as I can, as quick as I can. It's like asking you, why don't you just feed your neighbor and be perfectly fine, right, Rob? Because
Right.
I'm going to feed as many people that I can feed that need my help.
That's how
You're
we're
not.
going to do
I
it.
mean, why aren't you going to go big? You're not put here to be small, Rob.
No, I am not.
I mean, nobody
Nobody
is.
is.
Everybody finds their story and where their impact is, and then go big. Like
Why not?
small is small.
Yeah.
I don't want to go small.
Yeah, let's see where this goes. Or not. Let's see where it goes, though.
Yeah, and that's part of trusting the universe, is knowing that it's you want to always have a good plan in place. I always tell my team, the plan's in place. All you have to do is execute it. You don't have to make any changes to it. We've all signed off on this is the fact that it's a good plan, so we have to trust that.
Yeah.
And we're going to execute it, and we're going to trust that the universe is there guiding us. This is the right thing to do. We have to feel good about that.
Yeah.
We can't predetermine, doesn't mean you don't have goals, but you can't predetermine what all the wins look like, so that if you don't hit every single one of those, you're not successful.
That's not
I
true.
mean, my son every day is like, of course we're celebrating that, Mom. He's 28. He's like, of course we're celebrating that.
Of course.
That's what we do. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, yeah, that's what we do. Every day there's actually something to celebrate.
One of my favorite mantras that I say daily is that the universe is conspiring for my good.
That's right.
And the reason I like the word conspire is because oftentimes I don't know what that is. I don't know what the
It
good
seems like a
is.
mystery.
It's a mystery, and sometimes things show up the way
That's
that they
right.
do. I have my plans, and they're great plans.
That's right.
But the universe is conspiring for my best good, regardless of my plans.
Absolutely.
And I trust that. I believe in that. And surrendering, I guess, is the word that I use
That's
too.
what the universe has your back will teach you to surrender if you don't know how to do that.
Yep.
That's exactly the word that's exactly what's taught you in the book.
I love that. And that's been a mantra of mine that I've used for about 10 years. And the more I believe it, the happier I become, because I know that even if this didn't work out the way that I had planned, it worked out the way that it was supposed to.
And it's not a throwing all caution to the wind and not
No.
having a plan.
No.
I think there's a little bit that can be,
Yeah.
misconstrued about that. You have the plan, you execute the plans, you have your budget, you do all the things you're supposed to do, but you know in your heart that if you're fully surrendered, so it's not, surrendering isn't, I'm working on surrendering. It's like, oh no, I'm surrendered. I mean, I drive around thinking, I'm going where I'm going to go. But if something tells me I'm supposed to go somewhere else, I'm absolutely going to do it.
Yeah.
I think that hits the nail right on the
You have
head.
to.
Surrendering is just kind of a twofold type of thing. You still have to show up. You still have to be there,
That's
okay?
right.
And then be open to what the universe is going to
That's
put in
right.
your path. The plan, you can plan as much as you want,
Yep.
but you got to show up,
That's
and
right.
then let's see what comes to you, and then adapt
That's right.
and move through
It's
it.
not sitting in your living room in front of your TV and like, hey, what do you want me to do, universe?
Yeah.
No.
No, you're working
you
like
have
hell.
to take action. You have to show up, absolutely, every single day, even when you're tired. Although my team always has permission, I encourage it very much, to always take a mental health day. It's kind of it started as a little joke, but it's, if you text me as your person in charge and you say, I need a mental health day today, I don't even ask you why. It's so irrelevant. But I have to do the same thing so they know, right, I'm following what I'm trying to teach. If you need a mental health day for whatever reason that is, you take it. Anything we have going, anything is going to follow and wait after that. You have to take care of your people.
Something that I like about what you do, and I believe in mental health days too, but the thing that you're doing is you're taking a mental health 17 minutes.
Yes.
You're doing your mental health day all the time.
Yep.
I'm checking in right now. I'm going to ground. I'm going to center. I'm going to go back to my intention for the day,
Yep.
and I'm going to spend some time with that. I really love that. I'm going to set an alarm,
That's what I do. Yeah.
and so when it goes off, okay, it's time to
That's right.
go play with
Because,
my daughter or whatever I'm going to do.
I didn't make that up. There's a Fit CEO book that I read that trains you how to do that. If you're I used to travel a lot in the corporate world, and it's a very small book that just helps you, like, overall holistically in everything you do, stay fit in a very busy lifestyle. And it was quick one-offs like that allowed you to kind of make these improvements. And she had worked with a doctor, and it was proven that your mind, if you stop every 52 minutes, your mind will execute better if you take the next 17 off. And she's extremely highly successful. So, yeah.
Must work. Oh, look, as soon as I gave up.
You didn't give up.
No,
I'm
never.
just going to go for another pen.
All right. Well, so that's what's going to happen with, or that's the goal or the vision for the Christmas box in the next 3 years.
That's right.
As you are traveling this road, you've been doing it now for a minute. What are some of the restraints that you are facing in the community that perhaps you were surprised that you would face?
Well, our name, because you brought that up, our name has can hinder us because people think of us as a holiday charity.
Right.
They think of us as a campaign like a Toys for Tots or a
Thanksgiving's Heroes.
Yeah.
A holiday-based.
But even then, you realize, right? We talked about that with your name. You have to get funding year-round in order to make that happen.
Yep.
So the name can make people feel like, oh, that only happens on Thanksgiving. Oh, Celeste, that your charity happens during Christmas, because we've had people ask us, well, what do you do the rest of the year?
Right.
I'm like, okay. So, I've had to take advantage of the things that you can take advantage of, like public service announcements. I went into a studio, I recorded 3, in PR world it's called evergreen. They're timeless, right? There's no date on them. 3 pieces for 3 campaigns a year, spring, summer, and holiday. Mm-hmm. And I have radio stations run those for every one of those campaigns, so we're always in the minds of of people. I'm always getting text messages and calls. I heard you on the radio. I'm like, well, you really didn't hear me on a commercial, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
We find hidden opportunities. Our founder found this wonderful donation center that the biggest value is the fact that it has a billboard. It's not really a billboard, it's a sign. It's a sign that happens to be for that building. We wouldn't be able to afford $10,000 a month for a billboard.
Yeah.
$1,500, however we can. Millions of views, because it's double-sided on that. And as long as we have that it's a donation center at the bottom of the billboard, and I change it to match those campaigns, because there's a repetitive, so I'm a marketer by nature, so I can go on and on about this, but there's a repetitive, nature that people have to see things over again, they have to hear things over again, like you have to constantly pound it, they have to hear them 6 or 7 times, and they're like, oh. It's like when people say, I ask, where did you hear about us? They usually say Google. I don't know if that's true or not. They could have seen us on the billboard, right? They could have seen us somewhere else, but the point is, in their brain, that's what they did, and I wouldn't discount that. Your search presence has to be really good as well. I mean, there's kind of a marketing checklist that has to happen. And for me to go into corporate, it was important for me to bring that mindset back. I think there's a huge disconnect in the nonprofit world that there's certain things you're not supposed to spend money on. So for me, I think to better answer your question, it's me educating the community on the effective ways I can spend the money.
Okay.
There's restricted funds by nature that you'll get, and someone will want you to do that with it. Absolutely, you're going to do that. But then there's the more flexible, general, you can put this where you need it. You have to put in marketing dollars and advertising. You have to do it. No other business, especially in the sales world, is going to question how you acquire your acquisition dollars to get a customer. But in nonprofit, there's always been this, well, how much goes to programs? Well, I am my program.
Yeah.
If I can't
it's all programs.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. If I don't provide a direct service to children. I am the program. My team is the program. And if we can't constantly have more coming in, we can't constantly put more going out.
You have to be telling the story all the time.
All the time. You don't shut down with that. It's okay. What are we talking about this month?
Yeah.
What are we talking about on social media? And it's hard, to your point earlier. Like, you can burn out. You're tired. And if you're the most passionate about your cause, if you're the spokesperson in it, you can also tend to struggle delegating because you know your message the best. So when I came back as executive director, I decided I'm not hiring a director of development. It was a pretty big move. I'm not hiring a fundraiser because I'm going to teach my team that they're all a fundraiser.
Everybody is. Every
single person on the team should be able to say to you what it is we do and answer questions and not say have someone call you back.
Right.
You're going to lose people because guaranteed, I can't tell you how many people will email or tell me or tell me on the phone, man, you really called me back fast. I can't believe you called me back so fast. I'm like, why would I not call you back so fast? Like, you called me. And it's because they call so many nonprofits and they don't hear back from them. And that's pretty mind-blowing to me. But I think it's because they get understaffed and they think, oh, here's a list of things we're going to do later, and getting back to people happens to be one of those things. You're chasing the dollars.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you guys can let a lot of other things go, but you cannot let responding to somebody go. They get responded to as fast as possible, and they get thanked for their donation no less than 24 hours. Period. Those are 2 rules. We don't break those rules. I mean, look at my face. I'm super out, like you can tell, because everything else is not going to matter. If people aren't being properly thanked, if they're not being told the impact that they make, because your perfection is equaling paralysis, because you can't delegate, it's your fault. I'm sorry, but at that point, like, it's your fault, because you know what I mean? You got to create your top 2 with your team that are your critical deal breakers. You can't have 27.
Non-negotiables.
Yeah, it's got to be these top 2, and gratitude has to be in it for your constituents. Everything else is going to fall into place.
Okay.
Or not, because the universe has your back, Rob.
Yeah. Either way.
And I'm serious about that.
I know you are. I'm imagining now a 15,000 square foot space with 33 children running around at different ages. Up to how old?
18, the whole child, 0 to 18.
So 0 to 18, you have this great
and
space.
we usually, by the way, we can hold 33, but we usually cap out around 18 to 22.
Okay.
Which is still a lot of kids in like one space. And 15,000 is both buildings. So the shelter side, the residential floors, that building's about 7,000, and that includes storage rooms, laundry. So I mean, you start shrinking down, the floor, the residential floor we call it, and then the bedrooms are surrounding that. You've got a very small space. So it also speaks to the other thing we do, which is take care of the staff that take care of the children.
That's where I was headed with this.
The turnover's high. It's a hard job. People always say to me and my team, oh my gosh, thank you for what you do. And I'm like, really? Because we don't do the hard job.
Yeah.
We only exist to ask them how we can help them do their job better. I when my team gets burned out, or they're questioning, like, how much do we give, or how much should we give? I'm like, everything. The only reason we're a 501c3 is to help them do their job better. Period. Whatever that needs to look like, you give it up.
Yeah.
More will come, because they're the ones, as a foster child, I can tell you that everything that happens to us, we're totally dishing out, for sure. They're getting hit, spit on, names called. I mean, it's hard. It's not, rosy, the Christmas box house every single day. The kids they have tough stuff going on, and it's those staff that
who are
really
feeling
see the brunt of it. So it's like, we reach out to Starbucks or another company. We're like, how many $5 gift cards can we get? Here's a stack. Perfect. Hand that out like confetti. Like, go have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Thanks for sorting those donations. Here's $5. You know what I mean? It's like the smallest little things.
Gratitude.
Because they really have the hardest job. I mean, man, bless their hearts. It's a lot.
How many people would you say are on the floor when you're at that 22, 25 capacity?
So there's a 6-to-1 ratio that licensing requires for children in what's called congruent care, which is residential care for kids. So no matter how many children are, 6-to-1 is just you have to have that.
Turnover is really high, right?
Quite
you got
high.
20 people at a time. You're saying you get 15,000. What's the average time that a child spends with you?
2 weeks to a month.
2 weeks to a month.
Not because there's a timestamp. That's just kind of the average. And we've seen this post-COVID thing is like, all of a sudden we went from like an average of 8 to 12 kids to an average of 18 to 22 kids. We went from an average of 2 to 14 days to an average of 30 to 45 days can be a long stay now. For whatever reason, we see harder to place children longer. And I don't know what kind of trickle effect there is. During COVID, it was interesting, or we still have COVID, so I should say during quarantine, we had really low numbers, like 6 or 8 kids on the floor. And normally we'd be like, yeah, we're going to go out of business. This would be okay, truthfully. Well, there were no reporting sources, for child abuse, because teachers,
Weren't seeing them.
clergymen,
Right.
sports coaches, you name it, whoever normally would see a child outside of the home wasn't seeing a child outside of the home. So it wasn't being reported. So then restrictions lift, and all of a sudden the houses are just packed. We're like, okay, now we see what's going on. Unfortunately, child abuse wasn't less. It was just, they weren't, it wasn't being reported.
It wasn't as visible.
It was not as visible. That's right.
Wow.
So 2 weeks to a month is average. We certainly see, unfortunately, we saw a kiddo. Every once in a while there's a kiddo that gets caught in a system where there just aren't, that's why I say it's so complicated, there aren't the right resources. We had an autistic boy at our Ogden shelter, stayed with us for months. That had never happened before. While he was comfortable, well taken care of, it's a great place to be. It was really hard to watch because he was seeing children come in and out of the shelter and go to homes. And it was that awesome benefit ended up turning into a constant reminder of what we talked about earlier.
Why not me?
Why not me? Why do I not get a home? And it's because there weren't the right resources to put him into a certain group home for his needs, and there wasn't a family that could take him with his needs.
That understood what that meant.
So he had a longer term, and it ended up working out for him because he had a family member that was eventually able to really take him and help him, which is the best option. But it just took a while for that family to work out what they needed to work out in order to do that.
Wow.
But that's the opposite of what we want to see, but it can happen. Also, if a child has a disruption in a placement, always able to come back. So it's not like, oh, you've already had a visit.
Yeah.
Because if a child's removed and taken into state custody, they can always come into the Christmas box house. That's what it's designed for.
It's not like, you've been here before, you're not eligible for this.
Yeah. For this love and this treatment. Yeah.
Sorry,
we're
buddy.
So sorry. No, not an option.
So if I'm looking around and I see you have 22 resource rooms, you're in 14 of the 29 counties. Is that accurate?
That's right.
And you're growing this. How do you manage the volume of inventory, getting it delivered, making sure that everything is everywhere it needs to be? Like, how is that happening?
It's a lot, for sure. I'm not going to lie. It is. It's a bit.
I'm astounded. I'm an operations-minded man, and I think about this.
So we have places. We have the 3 locations, and then we do have some of the. Not all 22 can take the donations, but many of them can, because the benefit of having the resource centers in human services DCFS offices is that, one, I don't have to staff those.
Oh, that's good.
That'd be critically different. If I had to staff the resource rooms, this conversation would be a little slightly different.
Yeah.
My team still has to resource to them. So once a month, we check all the resource rooms, we divvy up. We do have some volunteers that can help us do that.
And they take an inventory for you?
And then basically what happens is when a caseworker goes in and takes items they need for a child, we have papers there.
Oh.
They fill out, I took these items, it helped this many children, because we have to track our numbers. They leave them, and then when we go pick up once a month,
you have kind of a file.
Yep, we take the numbers, we refill those, we kind of look at, and every resource room is different. Some of them they're great about calling us and saying, hey, we're low on a size 3 t-shirt. Great. Some of them aren't, so we don't know till we get there, and then we have to write it all down and then go back. It definitely is. I call them the Amazing Six. I have an amazing team. So committed, but they also know I'm very committed to them. I don't ask them to do anything I'm not willing to do, first of all, which I think is pretty important. And also, I pay them competitively for a nonprofit world. I don't obviously pay them competitively in compared to a corporate world. But we have great benefits. We have great PTO. We have great holiday pay. We have, I bring all the corporate benefits certainly in. I can comp day. Being in charge means I can comp any day I want. So I'm like, oh, it looks like, you worked 2 nights this week, or you're going to go collect donations this Saturday. Pick a day next week. Take it off.
I would imagine dealing with the emotional toll that you guys have on a day in, day out basis is exhausting, both for you and managing the staff.
Yeah. So if some of my staff are seeing a kiddo crying, or we're listening to a visit with a parent and there's a lot of tears, it's hard for my team. I mean, it's sad. It's very sad, especially when it's time for parents or grandparents to leave and the child still has to stay. As awesome as the Christmas box house is, it's not their family. They want to go home.
Yeah.
And there's lots of tears, and I have to be very aware of my team's emotions. I do have a coach that has come in and trained the team. Again, it's a corporate thing I brought in. It's we do mood checks before our meetings. There's a chart. You don't ask why someone's in the mood. That's not the point. The point is I'm bringing this into the room, and we have to be very aware that that's how uniquely different the table is at that time. All 6 of us are coming into this environment in a different mood with a different mindset. And it's just, I just heard, Rob, that you told me you're anxious. Okay, I'm sensitive to that. I write all that down in my notes so that as I'm interacting with my team one-on-one, I can recall quickly that's how they were this morning. And I can ask in our one-on-ones, does overwhelm mean it's work? Is there something I can do to support you? And if that's the case, then I need to know, what can I take off your plate? Again, it's more for me, but that's what I signed up for. That's not like I didn't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's important for me, if they're emotional, if they're feeling those moments, I'm sorry, this is hard for you. Why don't you go take a walk? Well, I'm working on that. You know what? It's probably still going to be here when you get back. Pretty sure that task is still going to be here. It's not going to walk out the door or anything. Go for a walk. Tammy, I have an emotional gal that works for me, and it's hard for her. I'm like, go for a walk. Do whatever you need to do. You have a son that's 7 and you're relating to this right now, and you don't need to sit here and listen to it.
Yeah.
Go for a walk.
I can't actually even fathom that just my character and in
lot.
general, like I would not be the right guy for this because I would have to save everybody
You're
that
like,
walked
I'm
through
walking
there.
a lot. How many walks a day are we allowed?
17 minutes every hour.
17 minutes every hour. Yeah.
And I'd have 14 of them at my house, and
It
That would
is-
be tough.
It is the hardest part when every once in a while when I'm like, just for a night, maybe I should just take them for a night. You know what I mean? You really have to disconnect, not from a jaded standpoint. You don't ever want to, I always tell the team when they're upset, I'm like, the benefit of this right here is you still care.
Yeah. You're still connected.
If you weren't upset about this, I'd be concerned
Yeah.
because this probably wouldn't be the work for you.
sure.
So the fact that you have tears, the fact that you're feeling it, I have to be able to connect to that with them. And I think because when I was in it, and they all are obviously very aware of that, they know that I'm feeling that empathy from them. And as their leader, I think that's really important, for sure.
Well, one of the things that we ask here at the American Masterminds is kind of a question, and this is a difficult question to ask you because of you're not a typical organization that we've talked to. But the question is, if you go back and speak to your younger self, you could go back and give that person a little bit of advice. Now that you're at this mature experience in your place, what advice would you be giving that person?
My younger self?
Your younger self. Let's say it's that 26-year-old that just got adopted.
Be kinder to yourself. Be more forgiving. Have more grace.
Patience with yourself, grace.
Yeah, I think grace just isn't given enough because even everything we've talked about, my morning routine and all the great plans and all the, wow, she's so well put together. No, I mean, some days those just don't work out. All day long, every 52 minutes, probably not. It doesn't work that well all the time.
Yeah.
It works a lot, and I'm pretty good about it. But I don't think, oh my God, and I really didn't get to the gym 4 days this week, and I didn't. Like, I could have the whole list of all the things I didn't do. I just don't think that way. I think I'm super confident today. I did the very best that I can.
Yeah.
With how I felt, what I knew, what was thrown into my lap. I have to just drive home feeling like I have the most confidence. I did the very best I could today, and tomorrow I'll do the very best I can, and it'll look a little different than today.
I like that.
I just have to have a lot of grace with that, and I would have taught myself to do it sooner. I was climbing the corporate ladder. For me, I was very aggressive about it, and I was very competitive, and I was extremely hard on myself and my teams and the people around me that I worked this hard, you worked this hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a pretty intense mentality about it. And I was like, I don't think this is going to sustain me through my whole career if I want a team of love, if I want compassion. And I think it's because in the corporate world, you're almost trained. Nobody says it out loud, but there's this training that the more emotional, especially as a female in a corporate male world, it's different in nonprofit. It's female dominated more, but in that environment, you're considered extremely weak to have those. Oh, she's not crying, is she? Oh, of course she has to go home to her kids. Like there's just this. It's a tough environment. That way you're very competitive to find a seat at the table, metaphorically,
right,
and literally. And so you're considered very weak. And I had to really push through, okay, you know what? This isn't going to work. I think I better start a women in leadership program in corporate, which is what I did. I think I need to help young women learn faster, what took me a really long time to learn, because I was dominated by this overachieving environment of like, more is better.
Yeah.
And it's not.
So on that front, if you were to give one piece of advice with all this background that you have in the corporate world, because it's two completely different
It is.
ideologies going on there, if you were to give one piece of advice to a young girl that is thinking about getting into business and whatnot, what would that advice be?
It would still be have more grace with yourself, but I think it would also be you deserve to be here. You deserve as much as anybody else in this room to sit here.
Yeah.
And the reason this happened is literally at this particular company I worked for, we had an extremely large boardroom. I mean, probably around the table with the all-male executive team of 12, there were probably 22 seats, right? Very large table. And then the whole parameter of the room was surrounded by chairs. And every time a meeting would start, and this was over the course of, I probably observed for about 6 months. I was there 10 years. And I was newer at the time. Men would come in, sit down at the table. It was no big deal, right? They start talking about golf or sports or whatever, tech, whatever was interesting to them. They seemed super confident. They were just like on it. Women would come in. They'd look around the room. They'd go sit to the side chair. All of a sudden, you'd see them pull back. Nobody asked them to do that. They just did it. They just felt like they didn't have a seat at the table. So I watched it. I noted how many times it happened. Every single meeting, I just had like my conference side notebook, ha ha ha. And it was astounding. And I'm like, you know what? This isn't just about, whole other conversation, but this isn't just about men not letting them in. It was about them not letting themselves in. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that really has to be addressed with women and the fact that they don't feel worthy to sit at that table with those men. It's not all their fault. No. There's things that they've contributed to that, but they're not helping themselves. And then in addition to that, you have right women that are feeling this way. So what happens? They're so competitive with each other. They're like bringing each other down. Yeah. And they're like, I'll override you to get that promotion any day. They're mean. They're very vicious. And I was like, this is a recipe for disaster. I can see this super clearly what's happening right now. And so we launched I asked our CEO, who was phenomenal, if I could launch a women in leadership program and what that would look like to help them gain confidence and more visibility, to help them feel like, one, they had a right to sit there. Right. Like it had to start from them first. And then the other part of the program, of course, was how do we help our male leaders see them more? So it had to happen on both sides. But I would tell them, be kinder to yourself and know that you deserve to be sitting here. Yeah. Your skill is just as valuable because you have a different perspective as well. Right?
Absolutely.
So.
Well, as a dad of 4 daughters, I'm all about they are worthy. And in fact, they are needed. It's more than just worthiness. There's a need for intelligent, powerful warrior goddesses in our world, and I'm all about that. So I love that message. As we are starting to wrap up now with Christmas Box, what is the biggest need? How can we support you best here at American Masterminds to make sure that we're spreading the message? What is needed most?
Always send them to the website.
Always send them to the website.
Always send them to the website.
Which is?
thechristmasbox.org.
www.
The Christmas. Nobody even puts the www anymore. I think it's so irrelevant now. It's
funny.
like, it's so old school. I'm like, don't write W. It'll say, everyone will know when you started.
Yeah, that's old school.
It's so old school, so unnecessary. But that to really answer your question, teen items are always needed the most, no matter the season, and it's because kind of like the adoption statistic I gave you of kids reaching age 4 are 50% less have a less chance of being adopted. Same concept, right? People want to buy for babies. They're so cute, and they are. I mean, I adore my grandson for sure, but it's like you just kind of have this thought process that they're more needy and they're cuter to buy for, and that's me. And if there's a girl, you can accessorize them, and there's just kind of this whole. So teens and boys in general tend to be the most difficult to get items for. I think they're just kind of the forgotten.
So deodorant,
people,
underwear, socks,
hygiene kits all day long. Anything that would go in a hygiene kit. Because remember, it's not just stuff that they're getting at the Christmas box house, but they're getting it. They take it with them when they go to their next placement.
Right.
And we want them to have all their own stuff.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
That's a critical time to have deodorant at that age. You want to have that.
I also noticed something on the website, though, and I was just wondering if there's anything that you need on this front, but it said that the Christmas box houses are in need of some maintenance and upkeep. Is there anything special going on with that?
Yes, so thank you for bringing that up. We've all the buildings are over 20 years old now, and so we have been in the fix-it houses mode for the last 3 years since I came back as executive director. And so we're taking each room, and we're very close to completion in terms of where we started. Now we're asking corporations to help us sponsor the final rooms because they're a little bit more technical than, hey, can you just show up and throw on some paint? They're very specific rooms with very specific needs, and so we're trying to find corporations that will actually sponsor those options.
Like the kitchen, like the bathrooms, like what are we talking about?
So like some things it's easy to ask for, like, and you have to remember everything's commercial grade. These aren't houses. The word house is a little misleading because you think like your house, right?
Right.
Oh, it's so cute, just throw up some paint. The reality is it's not that way at all. We have very specific walls that have material behind them in case they're punched, which means that requires a skill set that has to be certified. So sometimes, I think it's a little disappointing because someone's like, I could come paint, or I've dabbled in electric work. Yeah, probably not. Super cute of you, but
Yeah.
I'm going to need that warranted, and you know what I mean? So if you have a company that has that backing, from a construction standpoint, that's great because that's exactly what we can use, because I would hire it that way as a
So you're looking
sub.
for electrical companies.
So
and
if it was
plumbers.
because the kitchen at the Salt Lake Christmas Box House for the kiddos completely has to have a redo, and we have to have walls demoed on that space. I mean, we want to open the whole space up and create more room. It was designed too small when we first built it. We didn't know. We learned, and then Ogden got the best. Salt Lake's, needs a little love, but it's that we need contractors and people that have very strong skill sets in these areas that can warranty their work, and they
Do
have
good stuff.
experience. Because I just always liken it to paint because I get the most calls for that. So I'll ask, what's your painting experience? Did you paint your kids' room, or did you paint, which is awesome, or do you have professional
Yeah.
outside work? Because we have to have that. I mean, 15,000 square feet is a lot, and it's carpets need to be replaced. We need somebody that can donate new carpet for the whole 15,000 square feet. I mean, obviously we would take a room at a time, but carpet, or just not wood flooring, but the flooring that looks like wood, that stuff. That snaps in.
LVP.
That's waterproof. Thank
Yep.
you very much. Just exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. I'm here for you, girl.
We need what Rob said. We have a list specifically. If somebody thinks it's something they can help with, we have a very specific list of those needs.
Excellent. The other question on that, as far as who would they reach out to if I know a great you're the one, you're the green light and the red light, okay, excellent. Well, I will send.
When it comes to construction,
that's you.
this girl for
All right.
sure.
There you go.
Yeah.
As we're wrapping up, what is the one thing, if we could share the message, if we could share part of the story, and I think we've done a great job telling that story, what is the one thing perhaps that we've forgotten to talk about that is important to the mission of?
Well, let me answer that because we haven't gotten to it yet.
Oh boy.
So you have a new book, okay?
I
The
do.
Garbage Bag Girl.
That's
What's
right.
the big message that you want to convey to people and why they should pick this up?
I think it's important that people. It is a great question. I think it's very important that people that are interested in foster care or what happens to kids in child welfare, this book gives you critical insight into what that life really looks like. And I think, kind of like we talked about before on the what has happened to you message, I think understanding the why and getting into the mindset of how kids feel the way they feel and why they make the decisions they make, and how the reason why they're hard to have in your home is very useful, especially if you're considering that. I think if you're a child in care or a teenager, obviously a child wouldn't read the book. I wouldn't ask you not to let them read the book. If you're a teenager in foster care or older, I think it's important that you look at your life and ask yourself that question too, because I think the garbage bag girl concept isn't just that I put my stuff in a garbage bag. It's the mentality that I ended up taking with me, that I'm only worthy of being a garbage bag girl my whole life, clear until I started feeling different in my mid-30s. It took me a very long time, and then I've spent the last 15 years kind of really getting to that solid place of what's my value proposition? What does that look like? And I think the book's valuable for people that are in that position of not understanding what that feels like or what that process is like. So if those are for you, it's probably a good book for you.
They're for everybody.
Well,
Those principles are for everybody.
absolutely. And the book is available for pre-order right now.
It is on my website, CelesteEdmunds.com. Yes. www.celesteedmunds.com. It is. There's a pre-order little form that pops up.
And do we have
It's pretty groovy.
Do we have a release date of when it's coming?
No, I was hoping to have it, but it is in edit mode, and it's that process is really complicated. I had no idea. So if you're questioning if it's hard to write a book, yes. Is it hard to publish a book? Hell yes.
Really?
I mean, now you have great tools like Amazon, right? Like some people, you can just put it on Amazon. You can see how it performs on Amazon. If it sells better, it gets a better placement. They'll even drop the price, and there's a lot of cool things with that. I happen to work for an author who is, well, he's our founder. He's our board chair. He's a 43-time New York Times bestselling
He knows his
author.
way around.
So he kind of knows a few things. So not everybody has that going for him. He is a co-author on the book to help me do that, which is awesome. I mean, it's more than I could ever have asked for. So he's helping me make sure that ride is safe for me, and I understand what my options are and what that looks like. And I totally get everybody doesn't do that. But he also teaches that, side note. He has retreats at his ranch outside of Kanab, and he teaches people that are trying to write a book what it looks like to write and what it looks like to publish. And people pay to go on retreats up there to learn those things, because he wants people to learn how to do that. It took him a lot of years to learn how to navigate that crazy system.
Sure.
And, Amazon and the digital world wasn't even around when he started, which it is today. And so he helps take people through that journey of, what's better for you. It doesn't look the same for everybody.
Right.
Are you a get an agent, get a publisher person? Is that the best for your book? Or, is Amazon or is the self-publishing better for you? And he helps folks navigate that, which is pretty cool. His retreats are phenomenal.
That is cool.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah. So there's that. Do we have writers in the space right now? I feel like we have some writers.
He writes every day.
There's a
and
pause.
Depends on what you constitute as writing. Cause
I've been writing in my journal since the 6th grade. So I've got
That's
a shelf
awesome.
of nonsense, and so I want plenty of material for when they make my movie.
You
So
always say that. I love that you say that. It's so good.
it's gonna be good. I'm working on the soundtrack right now.
oh yeah.
With Stone Temple Pilots,
That's right. It's so punk rock.
as your shirt says.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, thank you very much for your time
No,
tonight.
Thank you for
and
having me. You guys are awesome.
Grateful for this. Have you done a podcast before?
I have.
You're a natural. You've got this.
Well, I don't know about all
absolutely-
that, but I have,
Yeah.
in terms of, how put your mouth to the microphone.
Yeah, speak up.
Speak up.
Well, we're grateful for your time tonight. We're grateful to share the story. Let me just say, community, if this is something that you've been thinking about, getting involved. There's those 4 opportunities. Go to the website, check it out. There is always a need. You are needed and you are important. If you can only contribute a little bit, it's more than we would have had otherwise, and so it's important that you're showing up at that level. And I'm going to tell you on a selfish note, knowing Celeste as long as I have, which isn't that long, but I've known you for a minute.
A year.
A year. She's always speaking from her heart, and she's telling the truth, and this is an organization that I support strongly, and I would recommend that you find an organization. If it's not the Christmas box, find something. Get involved and roll up your sleeves. The thing that I'm taking away from this interview that's important to me is to live an intentional life. Make sure that you're kind and you take care of yourself, but get involved. Pick something that you're passionate about and get involved, because that is creating a legacy. Mm-hmm. And as we grow older, that becomes very much more important. So find something that you love and go for it. Yeah, thank you very much,
Thanks,
Celeste.
Rob.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dun, dun, dun.
Mic push, because we don't drop the mics here.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the day, but no, we're not supposed to.
You're like, we don't drop them, we throw them.